Andy Staples covers college football for On3 Sports. He was at the Florida Gators game with Mississippi State, Billy Napier's last game, and he's got Penn State, Ohio State coming up on Saturday, but the big story is Brian Kelly at LSU. Could Brian Kelly have kept his job for another week for the LSU-Alabama game?
I mean, I don't know if he could have or not. The way they lost to Texas A&M, I think the wheels were turning. There were multiple reports, and we heard a lot of different things about, was he going to make certain staff changes? Did he push back on other staff changes? I don't think it mattered. I think the way they lost to Texas A&M, they were passing the hat essentially in the luxury suites during the game, saying, "Hey, can you help fund the buyout?" So it didn't matter at that point. And then, the governor gets involved. They have a meeting at the governor's mansion last night. Like, once the governor decides you're fired, you're going to be fired.
Why was this doomed from the beginning?
I just don't think Brian Kelly understood the job he was taking. You go back to the comments after the Florida game where he said the fans are spoiled. Well, of course they're spoiled. The last three coaches at LSU won national titles by year 4. But he made mistakes at the beginning. So he gets there. He fires Tommy Moffitt, their longtime strength coach. Tommy Moffitt was the strength coach for Nick Saban, for Les Miles, for Ed Orgeron. So for 3 national titles. And what does Tommy Moffitt do? He goes and gets the job at Texas A&M with Mike Elko and makes it his life mission to create a tougher team than LSU. And what has happened the last 2 years? In the second half, Texas A&M has annihilated LSU. When you don't recognize you have something special and there are certain things that make the place special and you just dump them right off the bat, you don't understand what you've gotten yourself into.
What's Brian Kelly's future?
I mean, he's 64 years old, so he's told people he wants to coach. My question is, would he take any of the jobs that will hire him right now? And there's a duty to mitigate in his buyout. So he's got a $53 million buyout. If he gets another job, the salary comes off the total for LSU. It's interesting because I think, depending on the interpretation, the duty to mitigate sometimes is almost like an unemployment check. Like, you have to be looking for work. So I think of the B. Arthur scene in History of the World Part 1. Gladiator, did you kill today? Have you tried to kill this week? Like, I think that may be more what there is to it. I mean, listen, Dan, if it were me and somebody handed me $53 million to not work, you would never, ever see me again.
Yeah, but you can't leave the coaching world, community, fraternity this way. That's not the way these guys are wired. That's why we're trying to bring back Urban Meyer. We're trying to bring back Nick Saban. You keep going.
We are, but they're not.
Do you think Urban Meyer is he entertaining the thought of maybe coaching at Penn State?
I think he entertains it for a day or two, and then he thinks, man, that was a lot of work when I was a college football coach. I got a pretty good gig at Fox right now.
Oh, I agree. The same thing with Saban. Everybody goes, your first call should be Nick Saban. And I go, Nick Saban is not going to come out of retirement to do this. The current landscape of college football sent him to ESPN.
Yes,
but
exactly.
Brian Kelly at 64, I can't believe this is his last act.
It's going to be interesting because it probably will depend on what sort of jobs he can get. Now, if he winds up back at Central Michigan or that level of job, which is a place he worked on his way up, I just can't imagine him just taking that. And so we'll see. There's going to be a lot of jobs open, Dan. So not just the big ones that are open now, but you could see Tulane open. You could see Memphis open because those coaches went into other jobs. Would Brian Kelly take one of those jobs? I don't know. And that's the tricky part because I don't think he's going to get hired for one of these big ones, especially not after the way things went at LSU.
How hot is Lane Kiffin today?
He is the hottest name in the coaching carousel. We were joking on my show last night. The scene in Breaking Bad where Huel just lays on the pile of money, that's Lane Kiffin right now because Ole Miss wants to keep him. Florida wants him bad. He's Florida's first choice. I imagine LSU wants him too. And if you're Lane, until somebody hits the dollar figure you're looking for, you just keep milking this thing. Like, I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know if he wants to stay at Ole Miss, if he wants to go to Florida, if he wants to go to LSU. But I wouldn't do anything until the cash register stops spinning.
What do you think he will do?
It's so hard to predict, Dan, because if they'd lost to Oklahoma this weekend, you could envision maybe Ole Miss missing the playoff. Maybe he's available. Maybe he says, "Oh, I can't make the playoff here. There's probably a ceiling that I need to go somewhere else where there's a higher ceiling." But look, after they beat Oklahoma, you're looking at the rest of their schedule. They're probably going to go 11-1. If they lose something they shouldn't lose, they'll be 10-2, and they'll probably still make the playoff. So if you can make the playoff, if you can compete for the SEC title, you can win the national title at Ole Miss. So I don't know that there's a huge ceiling argument between Ole Miss and Florida and LSU. I think it comes down to where do you want to work? And then that's a different question. And I don't know if I can answer that one for Lane Kiffin. I think that's going to be his personal preference.
Rank the job openings right now.
LSU's number 1, and then I'd say Florida and Penn State are kind of 2 and 2A. And the reason I say LSU's number 1, and I went to Florida, so I get a lot of heat at home for this, but LSU has had 3 of their last 4 coaches win the national title. One of those is Nick Saban, so all-time great coach. Do we think Les Miles and Ed Orgeron are all-time great coaches? I'm not sure about that, but they both won national titles there. Florida, Steve Spurrier won a national title, Urban Meyer won 2. That is 2 Hall of Fame head coaches. So at Florida, you might have to be a Hall of Fame head coach to get there. At LSU, you don't necessarily have to be that, and that's why I give them the nod. And in Florida and Penn State, they're both programs where you can win the national title. They're both programs where you can be very, very successful, but there's going to be a ton of pressure, and Florida has had a quick hook. Think about this. Since Urban Meyer, 4 coaches fired within 4 years. They do not tolerate mediocrity at Florida. And the thing is, you've got to be pretty special to get above that.
Talking to Andy Staples, he covers college football on 3 Sports. It's Penn State and Ohio State. He'll be at that game coming up on Saturday. What's Penn State do?
It's a great question, Dan, because the obvious connection at first was Matt Rule, who's at Nebraska now. He worked with the Penn State AD, Pat Kraft, when he was the head coach at Temple, and Pat was the Temple AD. But I'm not sure that Matt needs to move. I think Matt probably needs to stay where he is at Nebraska. And then you look at the landscape, and there's not like an obvious Lane Kiffin that Florida wants and LSU wants for Penn State. So you can look at the guys that are having success. Like I think people should look at Jeff Brom at Louisville, at Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. Those are guys that have taken situations where it shouldn't be that easy to win, and they've done really well. Like Jeff Brom took Purdue to the Big Ten championship game, immediately made Louisville better. So those are types of guys they should look at. Penn State should also look at Bob Chesney. If you want to look at Kurt Cignetti and what he did at Indiana, look at the profile. He was James Madison's head coach, and before that, he was Elon's head coach. So he had this level by level, get better every time. That's kind of what Bob Chesney's done. He went from Holy Cross to James Madison, very successful, very good recruiter of the Northeast. So that's a guy you should look at. And I know James Madison's sitting here going, "Oh, come on. We just lost Cignetti. Please don't do this to us."
Could Penn State hire a Vanderbilt's head coach? Could they do that again?
Clark Lee, yeah, I think you can do that. It's really interesting, Dan, because I hate the whole idea of, well, we can't hire a guy from the school that we've hired from before, or we can't hire a group of 5 head coach because we did that before. I think enough time passed, and also I think James Franklin was a successful hire at Penn State. He won them a Big Ten title. He was there a long time. So it's not like hiring the Vanderbilt coach again is the same thing that you just did. And in fact, if it works out the way James Franklin worked out, that's a good outcome. It's a good result. So yes, Clark Lee would be a very good choice at Penn State. He'd be a very good choice at LSU or Florida as well. But he's at his alma mater, and that's what's interesting about this. There's a bunch of good coaches right now at their alma mater, so it's to take a little bit more to get like a Clark Lee, a Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State, a Brent Key at Georgia Tech, because they're at their alma maters.
The impact on NIL with the coaches, because these buyouts, patience is running thin. You got 3 years, it feels like. But the expectation level of we're going to pay you $10 million, we're going to pay your players a total of $21 million. This is the future, I'm guessing, with college football that this is the transfer portal and NIL, and the coaches, I would say paying the price, but they get paid to pay the price.
I was going to say they're not paying the price. They're still getting guaranteed gobs of money. Like what they need to do is the ADs need to figure out how to guarantee less money than they're guaranteeing now. You shouldn't have to pay as big of a buyout as you did for Jimbo Fisher or James Franklin or Brian Kelly. That's the AD's fault for getting knocked in the creek by an agent. The solution may be actually, and the person who told me this actually works with actors in Hollywood, and they said they had to change the model when Netflix and the streaming services came in because you didn't have residuals and mailbox money. So they started front loading the contracts. And this person's like, what they need to do is pay them an obscene amount of money per year, guaranteed for 3 years. But it doesn't need to be guaranteed for 6 or 7 years like they're doing now. Because it used to be, Dan, before the NIL era, you had to have 4 years on your contract so you can go into mama's house and be like, see, I'm going to be here the entire time your son's here, even though we all know that was a lie. The players aren't stupid. They all have agents now. It doesn't matter how long you have on the coach's contract. So offer them more money than they think they're going to get, but guarantee it for 3 years. That way, if they suck for 2 years, you can dump out.
I've been saying that. I mean, Curt Cignetti is a great story. I never would have given somebody 10 years. That's an eternity.
$95 million.
It's crazy.
Guaranteed.
He's done a great job. I love it. But the most I would ever give is 5 years. And even then, how about I give you, actors get back end money after a movie is a hit.
Some residuals,
yeah. What if I said to the coach, hey, we're going to give you back end money on the profits that we have with our football program?
I don't know that you can sell a piece of the program, especially at State University. But think about this, Dan. It's $95 million is how much they guaranteed Curt Cignetti. If you paid him $15 million a year for 3 years, you're only guaranteeing him $45 million. And if it works out, great, then give him another deal. But if it doesn't, then you're not tied up. And he would have taken that because it had made him the highest paid coach.
Can Indiana win the national title?
Yes, this Indiana team can. This Indiana team is loaded. They got a bunch of NFL dudes. Curt Cignetti tried to tell us, and we didn't listen. But they brought back almost all of what made last year's team special, and then they upgraded at quarterback when they got Fernando Mendoza at Cal. So they absolutely can compete with anybody.
Great to talk to you again, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Andy Staples covers college football on 3 Sports. That was a quick yes for Indiana.